Welcome to episode 246 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. This week we talk about a plethora of iOS battery problems, Ant-Man and the Wasp premiere, as well as an Airbus on Mars. Plus, you get a look at the Chris Farrell Nest while he talks about Nest. This and more in this week's show.
I'm Adam from the Digital Soup Podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeek.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Welcome to episode 246 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I am Steven Jondren. With me, of course, is Chris Farrell.
No, I'm actually Stargate Pioneer. I've just had extensive facial reconstruction surgery.
Absolutely true. And we also have the retired version of Stargate Pioneer, Sunkast.
Hi!
Hey, buddy, what's up? What's up?
Oh, I don't know.
Were you just
I'm
super
just doing
excited
this
to be
thing.
here?
Yes, of course. Super excited.
That makes one of us.
Yes, we're here with another edition of the official GonnaGeek.com show, and we're going to run down some of the latest happenings in the world of geek, which you know because we just had an intro that said that. So there you go.
I thought I'd heard that somewhere before.
And then I think we had a pre-roll that talked about geekiness commencing. So it's like 3 times now. That's 3 times. But yes, if you're not familiar with us, first off, thank you for checking us out. We appreciate that. But we're part of the Gonna Geek Network, and if you want to check out other geeky podcasts, you can at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. We're the official flagship show. Wow, I almost said something else. But yes, we are always going to plug the Gonna Geek Network, of course, because we like the other geeky shows that are on there, including All Things Good and Nerdy, where Willie came in second this past week. So I'm pretty proud of that. You should check that out. I sniped Willie. There you go.
Best dollar ever spent.
Absolutely. But let's go ahead and talk about some news. Here we go. All right, this one here is, let's be honest, it's one of our favorite news stories of the day because it's talking about how amazing Apple is. That's right. Those of you who have iPhones and have iOS version 11.4, you may have seen that your phone is draining an excessive amount of battery. Apparently on the Apple forums this past week, a huge amount of users have taken to the support team to complain about this issue. In fact, there's over 33 pages worth of complaints over there.
Wow.
Now, the primary issue on this seems to be that standby battery life is basically shot. People are having so much trouble with this. Now, it's not affecting everybody, but some people it is, or a lot of people it is. Now, one of the interesting things that came out of this is that some users are reporting that the personal hotspot is showing as using nearly 50% of the battery life, even though many of those users don't have it turned on. Now, the other interesting side of things here is that iOS 12, those of people who have been able to test that are saying that it does fix the problem. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Now, I will say this, that I had to send my wife's phone off under Apple Care a few weeks ago. And while I was doing that, I ended up getting a replacement from them. And we actually sent that replacement back because of a significant battery life issue. It was getting down to 20% and then just dropping. But then towards the last couple days we had it, it was right off of the charger, down, dropping very, very quickly, like maybe 45 minutes worth of time. So I wonder if it was this. And then when we got the new phone, whatever happened during the restore ended up fixing it, because it sounds very similar to the problem that these people are having. But yeah, if you're having this issue, keep this in mind that other users are experiencing that, and you probably should file a ticket so that they can hopefully find the bug. Sunkast, have you encountered this?
Honestly, I'm not sure because I've been using my phone so much this weekend I haven't noticed anything abnormal.
What have you been doing this past week?
I've done a lot of Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
A lot of Pokemon. I was gone, most of Friday, most of Saturday, and most of Sunday. So I was out using my phone the entire weekend. So I didn't necessarily look into something like this while I was out because I was just using it normally and I didn't notice anything abnormal about the battery usage.
But you probably also had a massive power pack the entire time because you were playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, of course.
Chris, have you experienced this on your iPhone?
Well, I have an iPad, but I haven't noticed it on there. But that being said, I've been playing a lot of games and stuff on there lately while sitting on the couch, and those tend to burn battery a little faster than regular apps and stuff. So it hasn't been noticeable if I have, but I don't even know what version of iOS I'm running on there right now. I got a notification to download the most recent version. I still haven't done it. So I think I'm on, 11.3?
Well, maybe you should stay on 11.3 for a while.
I'm on it.
Maybe you should. All right, so let's move on to this next one here, which comes courtesy of the Deputy Vice Director of SNASA.
The what?
The Vice Director of SNASA.
Vice Director.
The Deputy Director.
Deputy Director. Yeah, okay. Whatever you want to call me, I guess that's okay. As long as I'm still, I'm still part of NASA, so.
What is going on Mars? What are you bringing back?
So this is kind of cool. Airbus is designing a Mars rover that will return soil samples to Earth. So NASA and the European Space Agency have granted Airbus a $5.2 million contract to design a concept for a rover that can collect samples on the red planet and return them to Earth in 2026. Now, Airbus is already building the ExoMars rover that will head to Mars in 2021, and that's partially why they went with Airbus. The rover would collect tubes from NASA's Mars rover that's going to be on Mars in 2020, and then it'll leave those tubes in various locations, and this new rover will have to detect and autonomously drive to these locations, collect the tubes, and store the tubes. It could take up to 150 days for the rover to collect all of the tubes, which would be around, I think they said, 30 tubes. And once it does that, it will head back to the rocket that it landed with for a handoff to the rocket. And then the rover would also film
you said
the rocket.
handoff. I heard hand something. Okay, never mind.
No,
just make sure.
no,
fair enough.
No. Well, we are talking about rockets, though, so.
Sorry, continue.
So the rover would also film the rocket lifting off and would be the first liftoff from Mars that we would actually see. Now, though all of this will only happen if agencies' feasibility studies determine that the mission is worth pursuing and if they can develop the technologies that it needs. Ben Boyes, who will lead the feasibility team at Airbus, explained, "It will be a relatively small rover, about 130 kilograms, but the requirements are very demanding. The vehicle will have to cover large distances using a high degree of autonomy, planning its own path ahead day after day." So I think this is pretty cool that they're going to have some sort of rover go and actually collect these soil samples from various locations, pretty much autonomously. I'm sorry, that's a hard word for me to say right now. And then take that back to a rocket. That rocket's going to blast back off, hand that off to an orbiter that will actually send that back to Earth. And we'll actually get to see the first liftoff from Mars.
That is really cool. And I hope that they find this to be whatever you say worthwhile, just because I think that this would be such a feasible, whatever. I just think that it would be such a great thing to have. Plus, we could say that you heard it here first on the official GonnaGeek.com show by the official member representative of SNASA, Sunkast. We can milk that for a long time. So,
you mean unofficially?
So how did you come across this? Because I want to bring that up because you actually mentioned this to us this morning, and I was looking for news for you because you were a little short on news, and I didn't come across this, and I was very disappointed with the lack of general discussion on this. And that's what I wanted to bring up here because I didn't know about it till you brought it up.
I just started scouring all the regular news sites out there.
Well, I
know,
think
all, the basic tech blogs that are out there that everybody usually goes to. I just started looking through stories on there, and then I happened to see this article about Airbus designing a Mars rover to return samples.
Well, it's really cool, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that I think that these sort of things are really important for us to have in discussion, just because it does keep us moving forward. And I also like the idea of it being Airbus, but I'd rather be Air Supply.
Heyo.
I think the most exciting thing about this to me is the fact that we could actually see a rocket lift off from Mars.
That would be really cool.
That would be sweet.
That would be incredible. Chris, what's your thoughts?
More space is better. Anything that has to deal with space exploration and science involving space is great things. So yeah, if we can get more info from Mars, other than like our secrets NASA base we have on Mars, I think it's great.
We don't have one there.
Sure you don't. Winky, winky. I had to say that since this is also an audio show.
That's right. Yeah. You have to say it too, legally speaking, because otherwise you'll be sued for letting out corporate government conspiracies, or knowledge facts. They're not conspiracies when they're true.
Of course, there is no secret moon base, nor is there a secret Mars base. Wink, wink.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk your Ant-Man and the Wasp news. What's up with this, Chris?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys noticed, Marvel dropped their third movie in the last 5 months this last weekend. Ant-Man the Wasp opened to about $80 million this weekend, beating expectations for the franchise. While the final projections say it will make somewhere between $80 to $83 million when all the numbers are tallied up. It's not record-breaking, but it's solid. Why is it solid? Go back 3 years ago to 2015 when Ant-Man debuted to $57.2 million. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, solid numbers as it came out, pulled an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, but now we have to wait until March for the next Marvel movie. We got like 3 and 5 months, and now we have an 8-month wait for the next one, and I go, oh man, is this a mistake? Is something else going to come in and get that comic book fever buzz? The correct answer is no. Nothing's going to come in and get that. The Marvel machine is working in full force, guys. I don't care what people say. If you had told me 10 years ago there'd be an Ant-Man movie and then a sequel called Ant-Man the Wasp that made over $50 million in opening weekend, I'd have called you a liar. I can't believe that this is the world we live in. This is the 20th straight Marvel movie to debut #1, stuff like this. The machine is running, and I found it interesting that it's 20 straight movies that have hit #1 on opening weekend. That's huge. This movie's never going to pull in like Infinity War numbers or anything like that, but it's not supposed to. Can't wait to go see it. I had some personal stuff come up this weekend, didn't have a chance to see it, but by all reports, it's really good and it's really funny. So I'm hoping that my box office part will help make it take #1 for the second week in a row.
I will say that Ant-Man's one of the most surprising to me. It's probably second to Guardians of the Galaxy for my level of surprise. I stumbled across it long after it was released because I never gave it much attention when it actually released.
Really?
Yeah, I watched it on Netflix and I was surprised.
But it's Paul Rudd.
Right, but that's the thing was you got to think about when it came out. It was Paul Rudd during a time that they really didn't go that. I'll use the word campy, but it was it's Paul Rudd humor, right? It was really unusual for the Marvel Universe at that time, and that's why I found it so surprising. So I think that a lot of people were probably the same way, which is why it picked up so much for Ant-Man 2, because I know it was one of the movies that I consistently talked to people who said, oh yeah, that's a great one that you should see, and I didn't talk to a lot of naysayers about it. So to me, it's not surprising that it did so well this time, although I didn't see it either. So maybe you and I, Chris, will each independently go together this weekend. Maybe you won't see me, but I'll see you, and then we can see it
first. Then,
did you actually see it?
I saw it last night.
Just keep it spoiler free. What did you think?
I thought it was pretty dang good. I don't know if it was necessarily better than the first one. I liked them both pretty equally, I think. It had its moments, and I thought it was very interesting to see how they handled everything. The only thing that kind of confused me was the time that had passed between, the first Ant-Man and second Ant-Man, and I was kind of confused as to, okay, well, where are we picking it up in this story?
Well, I knew from the trailer that it was post-event or post. I keep saying the wrong one. Civil War. I was going to say Infinity War. I knew it was post-Civil War, but I didn't know where it landed. But
you also got to keep in mind how much other Marvel stuff I've seen between all that, even since Civil War. and there's a lot of that stuff in Ant-Man 2. And so if you've already forgotten much of Civil War, and because you've already watched all the other Marvel stuff that has come out since, well, then you might be a little bit forgetful and lost and confused at the very beginning. I mean, you quickly pick it up, but it's pretty funny.
I think this one will be interesting to me because this is the first one Peyton Reed's gotten to do from the very beginning. Because remember, back when Ant-Man originally was allocated to come out, it was supposed to be a Phase 1 movie. Edgar Wright was supposed to direct it, and there were a lot of clashes that happened. Edgar Wright didn't end up making the film, and it became the last film in Phase 2 of things. And it's really interesting. If you watch the Honest Trailers videos on YouTube, the folks who do Honest Trailers actually did an interview with Peyton Reed where he basically critiques the Honest Trailer, where he broke down in Ant-Man 1, here's the stuff that was an Edgar Wright idea, here's the stuff that was my idea, and here's how I had to marry them together. So Ant-Man 2 is his first chance to be like, here's what I want to do with these characters. There's not stuff that's already set up by the previous director that had been associated with this for ages. And let's be honest, jumping into Edgar Wright's shoes is probably a bit of big shoes to fill, depending on who you talk to. So I thought the first movie was great in the aspect that it was funny. It's just a fun heist. It was a fun ride. And from everything I've heard on this one, this is a good palate cleanser after Infinity War was rather intense, absolutely. I think is the best way to put it.
There was a lot of fun and silliness in this movie. I'll give you that, and I think that was definitely needed after Infinity War.
I'm glad that they did Ant-Man now, even though I haven't seen it. You know exactly what type of tone is in there, and after seeing Infinity War, I totally agree. I think that this is a right fit for post Infinity War. Chris Farrell, let me ask you this.
All right.
If you had been there during Civil War, would you have helped the fight?
Well, I don't have any superpowers, so I'd be more of a detriment than anything else. I'd be getting in the way.
Gotcha. Okay.
So probably not, because I'd probably just gotten blown up in the crossfire.
And that's why with a snap, you're gone. That's why. And also moving on to our extra section here. We got a couple of quick picks here. Number one, first off, looks like Amazon's having a bit of a sale right now. If you've been looking for an Amazon device, or not an Amazon device, wow, that was the wrong company. It looks like Google, I should say, is having a bit of a sale. Amazon also is too. But Google has given $100 off right now on their Pixel 2. Their Google Home Max is running at a whopping $648 instead of the usual $798. So that's pretty cool. You've also got deals on things like the Google Homes and the Google Home Mini. So if you've been waiting for one of those, absolutely you can get one of those now. And if you've been looking for a Daydream, well, guess what? They've also got a sale on the Daydream. I wanted to mention this specifically because it frustrates me, okay? It really frustrates me to see these price reductions. Amazon's doing the same thing right now. I know I ended up giving my own tease there, my own lead, or I leaded with the tease. That's what I should have said. But anyways, it bugs me because these are significant drops in prices. And yes, I understand they're probably taking a loss, but there is a margin in there in these home automation devices that we know that they could shave off a little bit and hopefully push this a little bit further. Because my biggest fear as a home automation user is that we get so fractured that the whole thing falls apart, like the idea of camera glasses or whatever other weird home electronics that we thought was a way that things were going that end up falling apart. And I want to see these take off. And I worry that when we're doing prices like this, where twice a year you're getting devices for like half price, that you end up having people wait and then they just get bored and they don't get into it. So I wanted to mention that because it kind of frustrates me to a degree, even though Canada, $39 for a Home Mini or an Echo Dot, pretty good price. Are you going to buy yourself a Google Home Mini?
I got tempted when they had a 2-pack for $48 on sale on Slick Deals, but I don't need it. I've got Amazon Voice Services devices all throughout the house. Why have 2 competing digital assistants?
Why not? I think
because
that's the
my
question.
life would be hell then.
But then you could be like, you know what? A word, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to go and cheat on you with Google, and she'll get jealous.
Okay, so I'll make you a deal. I will get myself a Google Home device of some kind if you get me an Apple HomePod.
Next up in the extra section, apparently Nintendo's pre-order system is being sent as possibly being illegal to the German authorities. Yes, that's right. The Nintendo pre-order system is believed to not follow proper German laws, and so the authorities have claimed that it's in breach of the EU consumer law, and they've asked Germany, the home of Nintendo, to take action. This came up because earlier in the year, Norwegian Consumer Council argued that 4 major online gaming stores had broken the Norwegian Consumer Act by employing consumer unfriendly and potentially illegal pre-ordering systems. So this included Valve, Sony, and EA. They were also involved in this for not obtaining, quote, express consent from the consumer and his acknowledgement that he thereby loses his right of withdrawal. Whereas Nintendo was in even further trouble by failing to offer consumers any option to cancel software pre-orders on the eShop. And this is apparently a violation, allegedly, of Norwegian and European right of appeal. I thought this was interesting because, like, these organizations, several of them, are not North American based, and yet they're breaking European laws.
What isn't shocking to you?
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Fair point.
No, it is shocking to me because of the fact that we're talking major companies like Sony and EA and Nintendo. They should know these laws. They should know that these laws here take place, and it's not like it's just one specific country either. It's apparently an EU consumer law.
Steven, that takes too much effort and money to actually research laws and actually fix bugs and, have developers. It takes too much money.
Okay, that's fair. It's easier just to fight the lawsuit. I guess that makes sense. And finally, in the extra section here, apparently Microsoft is teasing a new set of Surface hardware. They tweeted out earlier today a picture of an alleged series of Surface devices. If you want to check this out, you can go ahead and check that out at Surface on Twitter. They've got a couple different things. There's one that looks a little bit like a Chromebook. They've got one that looks like some form of weird hinged iMac almost even. And the one that's a little more in line with like a thin laptop, and one that just looks like garbage. So you can check all of that out at Surface on Twitter. Definitely am not getting a Surface. Let's just say that.
No, well, look, I think Paul discussed a few of these on What the Tech earlier this week or last week. And what it comes down to is the processors they're using in some of this new Surface hardware. It's like Intel Pentiums, and it's just like, what are you guys using these things for? Why?
Chris, you've been happy with your Surface, though.
I like my, I have a Surface Pro 4, and I am no longer the primary user on it, but I also have a Surface Book that I greatly enjoy. And they're good devices. The hardware's solid on it. I've not had any problems with them. Some people do. But again, if you go on Reddit threads, there's always going to be a lot of vocal complainers on some of those things. But did you guys see that Tom's Hardware, the site is a website out there, tomshardware.com. They accidentally posted their review and announcement for the Microsoft Surface Go early. And some intrepid folks caught it in the Google cache and shared it. It is their 10-inch tablet that is the bargain-priced one that will cost $399 coming August 2nd. This is the one that has the Intel Pentium Gold processor.
Yeah, you're going to have a choice between the Pentium Gold and the Pentium Silver, and it's just like, okay, Pentium does not necessarily have a good market value right now in terms of how people view Intel Pentium. It's not something that is highly regarded as something like an iCore.
Yeah, that being said, though, Sunkast, you and I and Steven, we're not the target audience for the Surface Pro Go or whatever. It's more of the student crowd or the I need a laptop that's kind of stylish looking but doesn't need to be super powerful to take my classwork on, stuff like that. I think that's their target, is someone who wants to get on the low end of things, who doesn't need a super powerful machine. Whereas us, we're like, give me that i5 at a bare minimum. It better be i7 though, and all these other things. So
That's fair.
yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Look at the stuff that Steve and I have reviewed on this show before. It's always like, oh, I need more power to channel my home improvement persona. But
Can you do that again?
I don't want to do it again because I didn't do it very well.
Suncast, can you gift that after the show?
If I can find it.
Oh no, not a GIF. Oh no.
If you are thinking about getting yourself a Surface, it looks like you've got some exciting times ahead of you, and tell us why you're excited about this, because we don't get it. We don't get it. But let's go ahead and move on to Chris taps that app cam thing.
Something.
While you may know Chris loves phones, tablets, and other gadgets, did you know he's also a master tap dancer? It's time for him to combine the two passions in a segment he calls Chris Taps That App.
This is app related, but what I want to talk about with you guys today is I've talked about home automation. Steven's talked about home automation. Some of the pieces we use in there, at least in my case, have been Nest products. And I've got 3 different kinds of Nest products I'm using now. I want to talk to you about them a little bit and then focus on the end on the newest one I've just gotten.
So is this like a bird's nest? Is that what this is?
Exactly. That's what it is. Google bought this bird's nest making company.
Cool.
Then had them go and make thermostats and cameras and various other things.
So it's like a bird house?
Yes, we'll go with that.
Continue.
So Nest, you guys might be familiar with them. What they became well known for is part of the iPod team went to go and make stylish looking, but also smart thermostats. I believe it was Tony Fadell that was leading that team. He'd been one of the designers of the scroll wheel, if I recall correctly, on the original iPod. They went off to go and make the Nest thermostat. It was built as a smart thermostat. It would learn your habits. You could program it. You could control it with your phone, things like that. This is the first thing that I got out of all of my Nest products. I have a Nest Thermostat Gen 2 that I got about 2 years ago. I bought it used on eBay because these things brand new cost about $250. I got a deal and got one used that was about $130. I replaced like an El Cheapo Honeywell programmable thermostat that I had that was basically set up to say, in the winter, set the temperature 3 degrees lower during these hours, and the rest of the time, run at 68 degrees or something like that. I was not maximizing the capabilities of my El Cheapo Honeywell thermostat, but I wanted to try the Nest thermostat because I was jealous. My parents had just gotten one for dirt cheap. No kidding. My mom volunteers at a thrift store. Someone donated a Nest Gen 2 there, and she bought it for $5. And I was super jealous. And it works. It works. Yeah. So let's talk about the thermostat. Nest claims that the Gen 1, the Gen 2, and the Gen 3s work with about 99% of your HVAC units out there, meaning in most circumstances, you can replace whatever thermostat you have in your house with one of the primary Nest thermostat products. I personally had no problem hooking mine up, other than the fact that because I bought it used from someone else, it'd been unplugged and not charged for a while, so I had to charge up the battery in the unit a little bit before I could hook it in and have it working. And what I have to do on that, plug in a micro USB cable and hook and plug that into a power adapter, let it charge for an hour, and I was good to go. Once everything was hooked in, it was easy, good to go. Clip the thermostat on, do your quick setup procedures, and it was up and running in minutes. So, a couple things of concern. I have the Gen 2, meaning it only works on 2.4 gigahertz networks. It's not really a problem, but if you like to try and put everything on 5.8 gigahertz or something like that, you can't do it with this one. Supposedly the Gen 3 and the Nest E, which is the bargain version of the Nest thermostat, will work in the 5 gigahertz band. I haven't tested it because I have no real desire to upgrade. The other catch really is if you have a Gen 2, The only other perk you're missing out on is Nest kind of took a feature that the Ecobee thermostats had, which was putting remote sensors in your house, and copied it, meaning you could get 2 or 3 remote sensors and say your bedroom runs super hot at night. Put a remote sensor in there, and when it detects motion in there, it bases the temperature in your house off of where it's detecting the motion, so that while it might be, say, 68 degrees in your living room, if it's still 78 degrees upstairs, the thermostat's going to run until that meets your criteria. So it's a pretty cool feature. You can't do it on a Gen 2, so I can't do that right now. So how do I use my Nest right now? Well, I use the app to control it. It's also hooked into my Wink Hub, and it's also hooked into my alarm system. And why it's hooked into my alarm system is when I leave the house and set the alarm to away mode, it triggers what is called eco mode on my Nest thermostat. That's my away from the house setting, which basically says if no one's home and no motion's been detected by the thermostat either, because it does have an IR sensor that detects motion, it goes into a power save mode, meaning in the summer, I think the temperature in the house goes up to 78 degrees before the AC would kick on, and in the winter, it'll go down to 60 degrees before the AC would kick on. So it's part of the power savings features you can do. Now, you don't have to have a fancy alarm system to hook this into. You can also use the Nest app on your phone if you enable location services. Once it sees you're no longer near the house and has detected no movement in the house, it'll automatically flip over to the eco setting, which is pretty cool. Alternatively, when you come home, when your GPS registers that you're basically back within the geofence location of your house, it sets the thermostat back to the heat or cool setting to get the house back to the setting you want it to be in. So you get some energy savings out of that. And Nest has gamified it a little bit. You can go in the app, and you also get an email once a month that tells you how many Nest leafs you earned. And a Nest leaf basically denotes that you were energy efficient that day. It also compares you to other Nest users in the area. So I think I was in the top 90% of Nest users in my area for Nest leafs last month. It's kind of a cool little thing. If you're into competition, somehow this tickles that competition bone for me, and I'm not sure why.
Well, the good thing to know about that is that other people have nests in your area, which means that you probably shouldn't break into their house because it might alert them. So it's a good way for you to know that's not really a great place to break in, and you should head to the other town.
That is true. And I was talking about how the Nest thermostat learns. When you first set it up, you basically set it for a temperature. And then as you make adjustments to your temperature, it learns and starts programming itself. So say theoretically, every night before you go to bed in the winter, you turn the heat down to 63 degrees. Eventually, the thermostat's going to learn after a few days and automatically set itself to say 63 degrees at 10:45. And then when you wake up in the morning, if you move it up to about 68 before you leave, it's going to eventually learn that, hey, every morning about 6 a.m., Chris changes his thermostat to 68 degrees. So instead of me programming, it learns based off my behavior and adjusts its programming accordingly. So it's kind of nice in that. You have to play with it a little bit at first, and then eventually it just learns your habits. I kind of like it.
Is it smart enough to know, like, when you do that on the weekdays, not to do it on the weekends because that's not your habit?
It seems to be, yes. Now, I did break down and do a rudimentary program in there because I didn't want to have to fuss with that. At least in the winter, it's in there, where during the weekday, it knows at 4:45 in the morning, I think it is, to turn the heat up. And then at night, I think it's at 11:30, it turns the heat down. And then the rest of the time is all based off of geolocation, eco settings, how the heat's controlled. So you can do programming of your own if you don't want it to learn smartly. Or once it starts to learn what you do, you can go in and adjust that smart learned behavior through the app and through their website.
How does that work, though? Like, when you go away, does it sort of forget its brain, though, from the smart side of things? Like, if you're gone for a week, will that completely forget everything? You gotta kind of have it relearn when you get back?
So I haven't really had a circumstance where there's been no one in the house for a week, but my understanding is it would put itself in eco mode because it detects no movement in the house, and it would just follow those eco settings, which is separate from your regular programming of things.
Oh.
So it would just flip into that mode. And then the learned behavior is when people are in the house and adjusting things.
Gotcha. I didn't know that it treated it separately. Okay.
Yes,
I get it now.
eco does not necessarily override, well, your programming does not override eco. If it knows no one's home, there's no reason to cool your house down.
Okay.
Because why? That's not how you save money.
That's pretty cool. It sounds like you got a lot of Nest in that product, so that must be all that you got.
It came with 2 Cardinals. Now, I do have some more products. The next thing...
What? You have more Nest?
The next is the Nest Protect.
It's almost like I'm looking at a document that tells me that you have a series of Nest products you're about to talk about.
It's almost like you are looking at that, and we could make those notes available to people if they really wanted them. So the next thing I picked up about a year and a half ago, I had smoke detectors in my house that were starting to go bad because they only have about 10 years of life before the sensors basically turn to crap and they start beeping at you at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're going, what the hell is going on? I just changed these batteries. So what I did is I got a deal and I replaced 3 of these smoke alarms in my house with the Nest Protect smoke alarms. They're both smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. I picked them up on sale for about, I think it was 85 or 90 bucks each. So expensive compared to regular smoke detectors, but I was curious about how the integration of things work together. What's interesting on these is you hook them into a Wi-Fi network and they're all linked together then. So say I have one in my basement, I have one in the main level of the house and one in the upstairs. If an alarm goes off on the top level, it's going to notify me on all the other Nest Protects, and it's going to tell me where that sensor is that triggered it. So if it's upstairs, I'll get a notification that Nest is detecting smoke or fire on the upstairs alarm, things like that. Pretty cool. This also hooks into my home automation. I've talked about it before. I have programs in place that if there's a fire detected, it's going to turn all the lights on in my house. If it's color changing, it's going to turn them to red. It's going to push notifications to my cell phone. I'm going to be on top of things if there's a fire in the house. And if you've caught some of the Gonna Geek shows before, you might have caught an episode where there were some burgers being cooked upstairs and the smoke alarms went off and I was going, what the hell's going on? Sitting down here, it was entertaining. So the setup on the Nest Protect is easy. You don't have to put in any additional wiring or any additional hardware. You have an option if you can either get the battery-powered Nest Protect or you can get the wired-in Nest Protect. So in my case, I was putting this smoke alarm in where I already had wired systems. So all I had to do was hook in the wiring harness, plug in my Nest Protect, I was good to go. But if I wanted to put one where I didn't have wiring available, you could buy the battery-powered version of the Nest Protect, which has a backup battery and I believe also runs on AA batteries for 6 to 12 months, something like that. I forgot to look that piece up. But there are battery-powered versions of them, meaning you can stick Nest Protects in places where you might not have wiring harnesses set up. It's kind of nice, gives you a little more flexibility of where to put things. So what's the benefit of paying 90 bucks for a smoke detector versus 15 for your generic one at Lowe's? Well, I don't have to go around and test them. I don't have to go around and change the batteries. Nest does weekly checks. Once a week, it tests the smoke alarm capability, the carbon monoxide capability, the notification capability. Everything is tested on it once a week. It sends me a message and says everything passed tests successfully. I don't have to think about it. It's in place. I forget about it until something goes wrong. What is also cool about this is these things all have motion sensors in them. So if you have a Nest thermostat, I talked about the fact the Nest can detect movement to tell whether you're home or not to set the eco mode. It will also look at your Nest Protects. And if they detect motion, we'll tell the thermostat, hey, someone is still home, so don't go into your eco mode. And no, it hasn't picked up the dog or the cat. It's not that sensitive, but it will pick up people. So the circumstance here is my fiance did not install the Nest app on her phone for a while. So I would leave and go to work, but she'd be home and puttering about the house working on projects before she left for the day. And if those smoke detectors hadn't been in there, the thermostat wouldn't think she was there. I'd go in eco mode. As it is now, since I have one on a main thoroughfare of each floor, anytime you walk by it, it triggers the motion sensor and says, hey, someone's still here. Start that timer again for eco. Don't go into it. I think that's a pretty cool feature to extend the smart capabilities throughout the house. What is also really neat is if a fire is detected, it will turn off the blower on your heat or your AC if it's running, so you're not spreading air through the house and potentially spreading fire. So there is safety effects that could come into place with it also. It's a nice to have, not a must-have tool, and I kind of like it though, guys. I kind of like it, and it all fits into that Nest app really nicely.
So what happens if there's a power failure? Does any of the programming get lost, or what happens in the event of a power failure? Like your home loses power for some reason.
So the Nest Protects all have a battery in them. I don't remember how long the battery is. I want to say it can run for like 6 to 12 hours, something like that, before it's going to run out. And it will still notify if it detects fire or carbon monoxide. The networked capabilities go away. So if it goes off in the basement, it's not necessarily going to be able to trigger the other two, because if I have no power, I probably don't have a network. But it is supplemented by a battery backup. So I've never had a problem where that went away. And it's all linked to my Nest account. So if for some reason the batteries did die, As soon as it became active, it would just hook back into my Nest account again, make any updates it needs to, and then we'd be good to go. I've never had any issue where we've had an extended power outage where I've lost programming in any of these Nest devices.
I gotta say that the Nest Protects, they also have a interesting thing that not a lot of people talk about, but I think is worth mentioning is the interconnectivity between wired and wireless. There's a wired version and a wired version and a wireless version. And I'm in the situation right now where when my house was built, there was only needing to be like 3 smoke alarms. And I really want to put a linked smoke alarm in each of the kids' bedrooms. And so this would have been ideal if I had sunk the extra money into the Nest during when I did replace the wired ones about 4 or 5 years ago, because then I could have just got the wireless versions and they all connect on their own Wi-Fi frequency sort of thing, right? Like they all work together. They're not depending on the individual wiring that traditional smoke detectors use. I regret my decision on cheaping out and, not spending the extra couple $100 when I replaced them a couple years ago.
Correct. My understanding is use your Wi-Fi network to link them all together.
Is it? Okay. But still, yeah, it's so much easier because if you look at the other options, you're not much more into a Nest. But at this point, I'd have to replace all of my smoke detectors again.
Which is a very expensive prospect when you're talking about $90 a pop. That's why I've only done 3 so far and left the other ones that are wired in still in the house. I haven't done them all yet. That's a lot of money, guys. So 2 more things on the Nest Protect that I think are kind of cool features. There's a light up feature on it that you'll notice. If there's an alarm going off, it'll turn red. If there's a caution, it'll turn yellow. But there's 2 other things that are really neat is when you turn the lights off at the end of the night and say you're going upstairs.
Disco mode.
Yes, it's disco mode, exactly.
Yes.
No, but in all seriousness, what it has is what they call their nightly promise, which is when you turn the lights off, you'll see a green glow, a ring go around the Nest Protect. And what that is it does a quick check and says, hey, everything is passed. Your smoke alarm is still working. It's our promise to you that everything's working. It's kind of a cool feature. There's also an optional feature that they have on there called Path Light that is basically a night light. It uses those motion sensors. So say it's 3 a.m. and Steven wakes up. He's like, oh, I'm so thirsty. I need to go down to the kitchen, but I don't want to turn on all the lights. If you walk near the Nest Protect, it's going to light up the logo. It's got a white night light mode that comes on that illuminates the hallway or the pathway you're going through. It's really kind of cool. I use it at night. So if I have to go downstairs, I don't need to turn any lights on. The Nest illuminates things enough. I don't have to worry about tripping over anything or running into a wall in a half asleep state. It's kind of cool. It's certainly not a must-have thing, but it's nice to have. And what's also really neat is when you go into the Nest app on your phone or your tablet or your PC and you look at the history of all of these, it shows daily whenever the nightly promise took place and whenever any of the path lights would have triggered also. So you've got metrics that show you every day, here's what happened, in addition to when they do the safety checks and things like that.
That's really cool. I didn't actually know that about the nightlight feature. That's awesome.
I'd like to have some lights just follow me around. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's kind of cool in that regard. It's a soft glow. It's not harsh on your eyes.
Of course, you have me worried, though, about the one with your lights, because you say it just kind of lights up. I feel like it's going to go, I'm sorry, Hal. I can't do that.
It's not cool. Oh, man, I need to find a way to mod mine to do that. Because they do talk to you. The Nest Protects do talk to you. If there is an alarm, it tells you, and not in like a machine-ish voice that, hey, there's a fire, and here's the sensor that triggered it, and things like that.
Can you do celebrity voices? Like, I'd like to have Arnold Schwarzenegger. Get out of the house! It's on fire!
Get to the chopper!
That'd be great. But so that's the second of the Nest products. I have one last one that I just put in about 3 weeks ago. It is the Nest Cam Outdoor. So Nest has had an indoor camera for ages. I had one temporarily. It didn't work very well on my Wi-Fi network for some reason. I think I just got a lemon and I'd returned it. This was probably 2 years ago. But I did pick up the outdoor camera because I kind of had a need with some stuff that was going on in the neighborhood. It's pretty nice. If you're not familiar with it, it's pretty much a weather-proofed version of the indoor camera that's set to IP65 weather rating. It'll work in -4 to 100 degree Fahrenheit operating range. So it's fairly robust, and you can put it pretty much anywhere. Now, in comparison to something like, say, the Netgear Arlo and things like that, those are all battery powered. So it has to detect motion, then turn on the imager or the camera rather to catch things. The Nest Cam Outdoor is plugged in and it runs 24/7. you are constantly recording, you are constantly uploading things to your Nest account in the cloud. So you do have a bit of a bandwidth issue. If you're bandwidth limited, you might want to adjust your settings so you're not uploading as much. But it's been a pretty solid camera. The setup was incredibly easy. It comes with a magnetic base plate that you can put the camera on. There's no like clips or mounts for it. It's all magnetic for the Nest Cam Outdoor. So you just clip it into this magnet and you shift it where you need to. If you have a metal post or a metal beam or something, you don't even have to screw this into anything. You can just clip it to that and then put your camera on it and you're good to go. My circumstance didn't work for that. Over my garage door, I had a big wooden board there. I had to sink 2 screws into it with this metal base plate and then put the camera on it and adjust it to where I wanted it to. But simple and easy. The hardest thing for me was running the power cable back in from outside my garage door to plug in next to my garage door opener. I kid you not, install took 15 minutes for this. It was easy. I needed a drill bit and screwdrivers and I was done. Simple.
Really? That easy?
Yeah. It was that easy.
Oh, that's awesome. I've been looking at cameras lately. That makes me want to spend the extra money.
It's super easy. Let's talk the specs on it a little bit. I told you a little bit, IP65 rating, the temperature range it'll work in. You can set it to bring on up to 1080p video. If you're bandwidth limited, you could always narrow it down to 720p. It has a 130 degree field of view, so you get a fairly wide view, which is very helpful. It has 8 infrared LEDs for night vision. So if you're not keeping your house lit up outside at night, it's okay. It's got a night vision mode that's pretty robust. It also has a microphone and speaker on it. So what's the use case on that one? Say the UPS man's dropping off a package. You could see it pop up on your app, hit the microphone button, be like, hey, just leave it at the door. I'll pick it up later or something like that. And we'll speak through your camera back to the UPS guy. He can also talk back to you and be like, hey, no problem. I'm on it. It's kind of neat. When you first get it, it comes with a month-long demo for what they call Nest Aware service. Why do I bring that up? Because if you want to keep this footage on the cloud and store it, there is a subscription fee associated with it. If you just want to put the camera in and be able to check your camera whenever you want and not store any of the footage, that's free. You can do that all day long. But if you want to be able to go back and look at your footage a few days later or get custom alerts, you do have to pay for the Nest Aware service. There's 3 different tiers of it. There's a 5-day, a 10-day, and a 30-day service, meaning it'll retain all of the footage for 5 days, 10 days, or 30 days. Now, I am going to do the 5-day one, which I think is roughly $5 a month, or $50 a year. If you want to do 10 days, it's $10 a month, or $100 a year. And if you want to do the 30-day service, it's $30 a month, or $300 a year. Now, this is what you pay per camera, and the additional camera is half that cost. So this is where Nest gets expensive. If I was running multiple Nest cameras, it's expensive because I'm paying that Nest Aware subscription on each one of them. But what does that Aware subscription get me? More than just retaining clips forever, it gives me an ability to have what they call intelligent alerts, meaning the camera will start to learn who some people are. And like it'll recognize and say, hey, this is a person that I've seen, or this is a vehicle, or if this is just motion, which is kind of cool. It will also use the microphone. If it detects a loud bang or a noise that's out of place, it will also fire an alert off to you on that one. It will also allow you to draw what is called activity zones. When you go to the web app version of this, sadly, you can't do this through any of the apps on your phones or tablets. You have the ability to take an image or take a view of what the camera sees and draw activity zones on there. I think the way mine's set up is I've drawn 4 different zones. One for each part of my driveway, one for my steps, and one for where one of the cars is parked. So it will tell you, hey, we've seen movement in zone 4, and you can be like, zone 4? Who's on the front steps of my house? Why are they there? Or there's movement in zone 2. So I could know, well, who's pulling into my driveway? You can only draw these zones and get these zone notifications by using the Nest Aware service.
Let me ask you this about the actual subscription options. Is that something that you can actually adjust in the year? Like, let's say that you are going on that vacation for a week or whatever. 5 days might not be enough. Could you increase that for a month?
I would assume so. I don't know. You could do it by a monthly basis, and I imagine it's rather easy then. But if you pay a year up front, I'm not sure what the process would be. Now, that being said, I've reached out to Nest support on Facebook and Twitter before, and I've gotten responses back within 10 minutes or less in most cases. So I would say if that's something you need to do, reach out to Nest and they could probably help you out with that. I honestly don't know. It's a good question, though.
How did you decide to pick this one?
Why I picked this one is because all the other things I was looking at were all battery powered, which is great because you don't have to run wires to everything, but it's all predicated on the fact that it has to see the motion first, then turn on the camera, so you're potentially going to miss something. Whereas with this, it runs all the time. I don't have to worry about missing something because the only reason this camera stops is if the internet goes out or the power goes out. So I'm not going to miss a darn thing.
Is it possible to battery backup?
It's not designed on the camera to do anything with battery backup, but I imagine you could put something in line with the power cord that has a battery on it that could do that. I don't know. I mean, for lack of a better term, how this is powered is basically a USB plug that plugs into a power brick. So theoretically, I imagine you could do something like that.
Now you have to try it, Chris, and report back here. Otherwise, you have failed this podcast.
That's going to be such a pain in the butt to set up. I mean, I guess I could, but I've been talking a lot about how the camera works. Sometimes it's better just to be like, hey guys, instead of me telling you about it, why don't you see what some of the footage, what the Nest Cam Outdoor can do for you? And Steven, I believe you've gotten into my camera somehow.
I have actually gone on and I've hacked Chris's camera. It's something that a proud moment. I told my mom about it.
Please tell me we're going to see Spider-Man.
I absolutely told my mom about it, and she was very happy to see the footage. She says that, Chris, you should be embarrassed, but it's nothing that she hasn't seen before.
I should be.
And let's go ahead and just play the footage right now that I hacked.
For audio listeners, someone's walking up the road.
Yes, we should do this as a play-by-play commentary. A man walks up a driveway. He wears a hat.
Really terribly unfashionable hat.
Hey everyone, so we've reached that part of the show where Steven's kind enough to play a clip of video that I took on my Nest Cam Outdoors to give you an idea of just what the audio quality and the visual quality is. I think you can tell I just came back from walking my dog, taking my dog on a walk. The Nest Cam's always recording, like I've been telling you guys in the review. Pretty high quality stuff. I'm up right in front of it. I'm maybe 30 feet away from it talking to you right now. Audio is probably crystal clear when I go back and listen to it, but it will work as you step back. So I'm going back to the end of my driveway, which is 10, 12 feet back. You can still hear me pretty well. So you don't need to worry about hearing, folks. It's got pretty wide frame of view. Overall, you gotta say, the video quality you get out of these clips, it's pretty damn good. I'll mention it later in the review, but you can push these things to YouTube. You can give people direct links to them. You can store hours forever as long as you have one of the Aware accounts. It's not too bad a setup. So this is an example of what one of the daylight video clips is on the Nest Cam Outdoors. I'm going to throw it back to real me, or not time displaced me, to continue the review of the Nest Cam Outdoor.
Yes, so what you had there was me literally outside coming back from walking my dog. I talked to the camera so you get an idea of how the microphone works on there and the kind of audio it captures. You could hear cars on the main road driving by. It picks up all of that stuff and it stores it in my account. And what I did talk about in that clip is the capability to clip things out of what's captured. So you can go in on your cell phone, on your tablet, on your PC, view any of the footage and say, ooh, this looks crazy, or the police are asking why this car was in the neighborhood, and you can clip it. And when you clip it, it puts it in a separate thing on your Nest account. It exists there forever. I think you get 30 hours worth of footage, something like that, with a Nest Aware subscription, which is pretty cool. But once you've made a clip, I can push it to YouTube. I can give someone a direct video download to it. I can push it to Facebook. I can push it to, there's a neighborhood watch program that's tied into it. Pretty much, I can take this video and I can put it wherever I need to. So that was one of the other reasons I looked into this, because probably about 6 months ago, we had some break-ins in my neighborhood. And one of the things the state police came through and asked is, when they saw cameras, they said, hey, can we get some footage during these hours to see who was coming and going through the neighborhood to try and figure out what happened? So with this in place now, all they would need to say is, hey, something happened between 2 and 4 a.m. Can we get your footage? And I can rip off that footage, make it downloadable, push it to YouTube for them, anything like that. It's pretty cool. When I sent this clip, well, when Steven hacked this clip, he got a direct MP4 download of it, but there might also be an unlisted version of it that exists on my YouTube channel, so he could have gotten to it that way. There's a variety of ways to share this footage if you need to, which is really nice. They've baked it in there pretty simply. Once you link your YouTube account, it's done. You just push to YouTube and it's gone. It's great. I liked that aspect of it. So if there is a problem, they make it very easy to share the footage.
Yeah, I will say that fun fact, Chris Farrell actually shared this with me. I have no hacking skills. I'm not Elite's hacksaw or anything like that, but he did share with me, and it was really easy to use from my perspective. He actually sent me a link originally to a Nest website, and I viewed it on my phone just fine. No problems at all. It worked great on my phone, and then I came and tried it on the computer, and it worked great as well. So really great setup if you do need to share. I was really impressed with how it worked.
Right, and as you saw in that video too, the 130-degree field of view, it's pretty large. I can see almost the entire main stretch of the road in front of my house. It's pretty great in that regard. I've been really pleased with the Nest Cam Outdoor. I got a good deal on it. Normally they run about $200 to $250, but you can catch them on sale. Around Father's Day, they were on sale for about $150 or less. So I picked it up around that time frame, and it sat on my shelf for like 3 days before I decided to go install it because it was hot as hell out here. I didn't want to hang out in my garage and sweat so much.
Yeah, that was probably a smart idea. But why did you choose that location rather than something like your front door?
Because the way my front door is situated, it's offset from things, and there's two big metal pillars there. And if I set it on the front door, I would lose a lot of field of view. The way this is set up is it's centered on my garage door, basically, and pointed out towards the street. And most of the traffic I have is coming up into my driveway, so it's going to catch that. And with the wide field of view, I can see anyone that goes up the steps to get to my front door, unless they like jumped over from my neighbor's driveway over a railing. I would be able to see all of that. So really, it was just the best centered view of the front of my house. That's why I put it where I selected.
That was actually a leading question because a lot of people are into the doorbell cams right now, and I've even considered them myself, but I have to say that I really like the execution of this. If you haven't seen this, you can go to gonnageek.com/246 or sorry, geeks.link/246 to check this out. I think that Chris has a really good placement on this, and a wide view camera like this can cover, in my opinion, a lot more of your front than you could just simply with one of the doorbell cameras. I think that this is probably a better decision.
Right. And remember, the nice thing on this one is to mount it, it's all magnets. So if I decide I want to change my view or point it a little more to the right so I can catch more of my steps, I don't have to go and unscrew any brackets or anything like that. I literally just go and twist the camera a little bit on the magnet. And this is right over top my garage door. So there's a lot of vibration as the garage door opener goes. This thing hasn't shifted an inch, or a millimeter rather. The magnets are very strong that are in place on this one. So the placement, you don't really have to worry about something shifting your camera very easily.
Well, thanks so much for sharing this with us here. It's great, and really quite a few different neat Nest applications that you have here. But this camera one, I gotta say, out of all of them, I think it's the one that made me the most giddy. It's neat.
It's the coolest little toy. Yeah, I like it too.
So if you have any questions about this, or you think Chris Farrell's doing it wrong, please do get in touch with us through any of the ways. You can definitely tweet us at GonnaGeek. You can also find us at facebook.com/GonnaGeek, or head on over to www.gonnageek.com and leave us a message there. Tell us why Chris Farrell did this wrong. Tell us why he wasted his money, and he'll go and reply and tell you why you are wrong.
He definitely did the hat wrong.
Well, that's my sun hat because I am very, very bald.
My dad wears a hat like that.
That's my take the dog out for a walk hat and Pokemon Go hunting hat, because if I'm out in the sun all day, I don't care if I look dumb. That keeps the sun off my face, the top of my head, and my neck.
That's what sunscreen is for.
At least we know, too, that if you ever have a problem with your studio getting flooded or something like that, you can go podcast from outside.
That is true. We could podcast directly from my Nest Cam somehow, I'm sure. We'll find a way. There's a way.
But that's going to take us to the end of the show. Before we wrap up, let's let Sunkast take a moment to plug and promote himself. Sunkast, if people are just itching to have more of you, where can they find you?
So check out gfqnetwork.com. That is the home of the GFQ Network. I'm a producer and a thing of all trades over there, I guess. I do pretty much everything because Andrew is never home anymore. So check that out, gfqnetwork.com. Also, follow me on Twitter at Sunkast. It is spelled with a K and not a C.
Awesome. Chris, you have anything that you want to plug or promote?
I'll just say the thing I normally do, which is we've got a great network of shows here on GonnaGeek.com. Head over to GonnaGeek.com/network. 25 plus different shows. They're all good. They're all entertaining. I'm sure we have something that's going to fit that geeky need you're looking for. So seriously, go check it out. I guarantee you'll find something you like.
And my plug/promotion is not a joke. I'm not being rude. I'm giving a special hello to SP's mom. I know that SP's mom is actually watching this, and SP's mom, thank you for watching, and we hope that you were enlightened by Chris's nest. See, I can't say Chris and nest together. I keep flubbing on my words, but I do that all the time anyways. But that is going to take us to the end of the show. So for episode 246 of the official GonnaGeek.com show, I'm Steven John Drew saying thanks for watching, and please do subscribe in Google Podcasts.
I'm Sunkast, and I just caught a Pokemon.
I'm Chris, and I just caught a Pokemon right before the Nest segment, too.
I should probably reactivate Pokemon Go. Bye.
I might be about to evolve a shiny Charizard.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.
Your headphones break, Suncast?
No, I'm just. I don't know if you can see how tan the back of my neck.
Oh
is.
yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was shadow, but yeah,
from
it
the
is.
weekend.
Pokemon Go, eh?
I can see like wicked farmer's tan down here. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's just.
That's incredible. That's worse than mine. That's worse than mine. It's the farmer tan cast. There we go.
I was literally out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday outside.
This is
all day.
Yeah. This is the episode where you get to see a little skin from the Gonna Geek. I'm gonna tweet that. I'm gonna put this in post show. It's going in post show.
Oh yeah.